if you want to save yourself some money, I would recommend just doing the Kerdi membrane over drywall. So believe it or not, they actually do recommend it to be over drywall versus cement board. And the main reason is because this is a smoother surface and the way that the thin set will bond to the actual drywall. So, you know, it seems counterintuitive to put drywall up, but you know, if the membrane's waterproof, the membrane's waterproof, and that's what you know, that's what's being warranted. So these companies have a long life on their showers, and really it just makes it significantly cheaper than using any type of foam backer board. I love foam backer boards, don't get me wrong. It's just that, you know, right now we're having some shortages, and so I went this way, and honestly I might end up doing more of this just because it does save a few $100s on a shower build. So really, I did use some Kerdi board on the back here. I just was making it a little bit more simple with this curved top. But basically, you know, you have to wrap all the corners with Kerdi band and the membrane. So this is, you know, the niche is a really important area to be waterproof because obviously it's a cavity that water can come in on. So that's kind of why I used a foam board, but it also just made it easier to cut this and make it a curve. I always put the walls up first, so whether you were using Kerdi board or you're using the Kerdi membrane, you always want to have the waterproofing on the walls first and then set your shower pan. And plus it makes it a lot easier because you're not stepping all over the pan. If any thin set gets on this floor, it's not a big deal. Okay, so what my plan is how long is this? This is 39 inches. So you can fold the bend. Basically everything needs to be overlapped by 2 inches. So wherever you have the membrane, overlap it. But I think for this scenario, I might just wrap it in the corner like this, and then I'll just have a straight piece coming right along my corner. So, but you can overlap it either way. It really makes absolutely no difference. You just obviously want to, you don't want to have to make too many seams. So yeah, we'll have plenty of room to bend that over. So I'm going to start on my back wall first. And you have to make sure that you get a Kerdi trowel. So this is an 1/8 by 1/8 inch square notch trowel. It really helps out to have the proper size trowel so that you know, you're getting the right amount of fins. Okay, so we're going to be using Schluter's All Set thin set for adhering our membrane. So most important thing you can do is make sure you mix the right ratio for this. So follow the bed directions at the back of the bag, but it's basically 8.5 quarts. That will give you the loosest mixture, and that's really important to adhere membranes down properly. So be sure you don't have to use All Set. You can use any type of modified thin set, but just make sure it's the wettest ratio possible so that you can have success with installing the membrane. What you want to do is just take a damp sponge and just wipe down the surface before applying the Kerdi membrane. And just kind of gets all the dust off of it, and it keeps this drywall from zapping out the moisture in the thin set. Okay, so now I just like to use a knife just to spread it on the wall, kind of like a joint compound. Don't worry about the excess that gets on the floor. It's kind of a messy job, I'm not gonna lie. To get this much thin set on a wall is a bit messy. And then you just notch it. This directional troweling. can see how fluid this stuff is. It's very, very, very fluid. And we'll just hang it like wallpaper, essentially. So I want to bend that into that corner so that I can just put a straight piece on the side. If you're just trying to get all the bubbles out. Feather this out, get all those air bubbles out of there. Make sure your corner stays nice and tight. And it's just like wallpaper, essentially. You just try to get all the air bubbles out of it. And we can cut the bottom here, because this doesn't have to be completely tight to the floor, because we're still having the shower pan to install. So even if you're like an inch off the ground, it's not a big deal. Always want to pull some of this off, make sure you're getting good coverage, so you can see how there's no bald spots. Now it's not going to really show much up on the membrane itself, but you just want to make sure that you're getting enough coverage on everything. And again, just really feel for any air bubbles. And right at this corner, I'm just going to cut this at diagonal. Now this is a little odd. So we're going to wrap this up. Okay, so we'll move on to our next piece. Make sure there's no air bubbles in this. That feels all good to me. So it's overlapping this by 2 inches. So we're going to let this fold in the corner the way it needs to. Pull some of this out, see what kind of coverage you're getting. So like I said, sometimes you're not gonna see it all over the actual membrane itself, but when you see it all kind of, I don't know what you want to call that, but it basically suctioning off of there isn't any bald spots. That's your main concern. If you have bald spots, then you're not gonna have a good adhesion. But as you can see, everything is uniform, so you're in good shape. And most of the time, the problems arise with the thinset being too dry. You know, so that's why you want it to be the wettest allowable amount so that it can easily bond to it. Go ahead and do our shower faucet wall next. A little bit accurate on here. You can always add more around here if you don't get the cuts right. It's not a big deal. But it'd be best if you can try to get this tight around here. All right, you can shut it off now. So we're gonna have to address all these seams all the way around here. So let's get some thinset on here and trowel it out. And for the corners, you just want to cut a piece of membrane, read it in half, and we're going to fold it over like that, and you just have to put some thinset underneath that section. So we'll just use this as a template and take a 1/2 inch, maybe even 3/4 of an inch off all the way around this.